This is Shaklee Senior Master Coordinator Bob Ferguson, and it's my pleasure to be your host for this episode of Thoughtsmanship, a legacy of Dr. Forrest C. Shaklee. My guests today are Senior Master Coordinators Ruth Hallberg and her third-generation Shaklee partner, James Hatcher. Ruth and her husband, Paul, started their Shaklee business in 1967 when Paul retired as a lieutenant colonel from a 20-year service in the Air Force. Ruth has always had the heart of an entrepreneur, whether selling door-to-door or good news clubs for her local church. When they were introduced to Shaklee, Ruth had an immediate health need, and Paul saw the value of the business opportunity. So today, 51 years later, that organization is still doing over $7.5 million a year in sales and growing. And Ruth, I understand that you made Master Coordinator in 4 years and 3 months on your 25th wedding anniversary. And I understand there's kind of a story about that with Dr. Shaklee.
Yes, we made it in 4 years and 3 months. We really didn't know that we were going to be master that time, but a friend of Paul's that we knew in the military, his name was Dan Hayden, and we knew him when we were in the military in Germany. And we had talked to him. He lived in Texas, and we had sponsored him, and he was growing in Shaklee, and he called us on our 25th anniversary. We were there at the party we were having, and he told us that he put in his order to make us Master Coordinator, which really was exciting. We decided to go to home office and to let them know that we had made Master. And I don't know that they had a lot of recognition in those days, and I don't know if how many Masters there were before us. I don't know that. But I know that we wanted to make a big deal about it. So I ordered 3 bouquets of 15 roses, red roses, and I had them sent to the home office. And then we decided that we would be there when the roses arrived or right afterwards. And so we got 15 red roses for Dr. Forrest and Lee. They were all there in the office. And so when they arrived, they didn't know what the roses were all about because we didn't say anything. We just sent them the roses. So when we arrived, we told them what had happened, that Dan Hayden had called us, and he had put his order in, and we now were Master Coordinator. So that was very exciting. Dr. Shaklee came out, and we talked with him for quite a while, talked to Lee and Forrest, and then Doctor came over, and we shook hands with him. I have a picture of that when Doctor came over, and then he kissed me on the cheek. That was very, very important to me.
That is wonderful. And so you've had 15 first-level directors for all these years. You've never reverted. You've always qualified for every car, every convention, and took your family all over the world. It really has been an amazing business for you, hasn't it?
It has been. It has. For our whole family, actually.
So, Ruth, in that regard, you were around Dr. Shaklee in those days and saw him working and had interactions with him. Are there any particular experiences that really stand out in your memory as significant in your interactions with Dr. Shaklee?
Well, there was one time that we were sitting in the office waiting for our order, and a young man came in, and he sat in the chair across from us. And I don't know, I think he was there looking for a job or something. And Dr. Shaklee came out, and when he did, he went over to the young man and stood there and talked to him just like he was a friend. And after Dr. Shaklee went back into his office, the young man said to us, "Oh, my goodness, that was the owner of the company because Dr. Shaklee's picture was there." So that's the kind of a guy he was. He was down to earth. He loved everybody. He never looked down on anybody. He always was. Everybody was a great person to him, and he loved everybody. And so that made a big impression on that young man, and it always made an impression on us because he always treated everybody like we were special.
And so how has Dr. Shaklee's philosophy of thoughtsmanship impacted your life and the course of your business?
Well, we grew up as Christians and loved everybody too. So when we met Dr. Shaklee and realized that his philosophy was that everybody is created equal, we're all great, and he loved everybody, it made a big impression on us, and that's the way we always try to treat people too.
Oh, that's really wonderful. So, James, you are a third-generation leader. You entered into partnership with your grandmother. You didn't, unfortunately, have a chance to meet Dr. Shaklee. But what is it about the Shaklee business that attracted an entrepreneur like yourself?
For me, Bob, it was, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and, unless your family was buying land for the last 60 years, you couldn't get the family farm because you couldn't live on it. And after the housing market crash in the late 2000s, Karen and I were forced to start over from construction, and I looked at Shaklee as something that I could build, that I could leave to my kids and grandkids, and diversify my income, with being involved in other countries. And to me, that was really a wise way to be an entrepreneur, was in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how important to your decision to do this business was this philosophical basis? Was Dr. Shaklee's understanding about life and man's relationship with nature and how that expresses in everything in the Shaklee product line, in the way we do business? How important was that to you?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because honestly, the quote of Dr. Shaklee's that made me really look at Shaklee overall was the quote, "A better health for everyone and opportunity for anyone." And I saw that, and I thought, I can work for a company anywhere where money's first and the people are second. And in Shaklee, that's who I'd always been in my life, was the people were first and the money was second. Our construction business, I always hired ex-cons. It was always an opportunity. I'm like, I don't think anybody even knows that story, actually, that we only hired ex-kids that were down and out, who didn't have family. And my construction business was always an outreach for people. And when I heard that quote, it resonated with me. That's how I wanted to live my life.
That is pretty significant. So, Ruth, 51 years later, you are still active in the business. I know James is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but what does it mean to you to have a business where, even at an age where most people are retired or taking it easy, you have the opportunity to still be active in something that is really meaningful? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm still in touch with people that I have known for. In fact, the interesting thing is, I told you that Dan Hayden called us and told us that he made a director, so we were at that time it was supervisor, so that we were going to be master coordinators. And it's interesting that his son, Bob Hayden, still uses Shaklee products after all these years. And he was the one, Dan was the one that called and made us master, and his son is still using the products after all these years. I'm still in touch with the Hayden family. Is that interesting?
It is very interesting. It's interesting to me, and I'm sure, James, this wasn't lost to you when you were doing your due diligence to decide whether you wanted to be involved, that the average person who has been using Shaklee products has been using the products for 10 years. I think that is a very important business statistic, but it also really speaks deeply to the quality of the products, which then ties back into this philosophy that drives all of our product development, what we will do, what we won't do, and also drives how we treat people, how the structure of our business actually is evolved and how it's executed. So, James, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what you feel about how the actual structure of Shaklee business meshes with your prior practice of having your business be an outreach to people.
I think that's a really cool question, because we just had this conversation with one of my leaders today, and I said, you know what, if a bar of soap is the excuse to be plugged in and a part of a family's life, where life is happening, and because of that opportunity, I can encourage and lift up and be a positive force in that family, what an amazing thing is that. There's no other way to say it other than that for me. I mean, to have those conversations and be involved in life with the excuse of soap, and then be able to bring them an opportunity for income, but really just to be able to be plugged in over something that seems basic, but to be involved in things that are so important. I am free to do that. I am free to think that way. I am a free agent because of that philosophy. And, you spoke of the 10-year 10.5 your average customer. You can't do that unless you're not focused on people's needs. That wouldn't be in existence if there wasn't a focus on people's needs.
I think 10 years is a lot of my people have been with me for 20 and 25 years. A lot of them, I could name them off. In fact,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we get a 10-year average because there's quite a few people who have been with us 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I have had a young man who was a friend of Paul's who was in high school with him that was in Hawaii. And we went to Hawaii on a trip with Shaklee, and Paul looked him up and talked to him, but we didn't sponsor him because Paul said, I can't ship products to Hawaii because we were doing our own shipping at that time. So we didn't tell him about Shaklee. So the next time we went to Hawaii, he said, what in the world are you guys doing? What are you doing in Hawaii again? Because Shaklee was giving us trips all the time. So then we sponsored Bob Briggs, and he's been with us. He was with us for so many years, and his family, and Paul went to high school with him. So he was with us at least 25, 30 years. So that we have a lot of people that have been with us that long. So maybe we helped that average probably.
Oh, yeah. You're one of the organizations that pulls that average up. So, yeah, to kind of wrap up here, Ruth, what would you like people who are listening to this podcast, some of whom may be familiar with Shaklee, some may be involved, some may be listening to this podcast and not have ever heard of Shaklee before they heard our conversation. What are some of the important things that you'd like to communicate with people about your experience?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. There's so many things with Shaklee that have always been important to me. I remember one time when I was talking to Dr. Shaklee, and I said, how many of this supplement do you take? And he said, well, I just walk through there and and I just put my hand in and take a handful. He never did tell us how many of anything to take. He never was specific about that. He always was just general about giving us instructions about what to do. But he said he just put his hand in there and take a handful. And so many of us have taken a lot of supplements over the years because of the things that Dr. Shaklee said to us.
And I might ask, if you don't mind, Ruth, what is your age now?
I'm 91. I'll be 92 in September.
Well, as they say, there you have it. And you're still involved in your business. I'd say that's a pretty good testimonial to the impact of the products and the impact of our culture.
When we would go to conventions, Dorothy Shaklee, doctor's wife, would come down in the evening time and take time to go upstairs, doctor. And so she'd get him to go up to his room. Well, a lot of us knew Dr. Shaklee quite well. We didn't go to our room. We stayed down there because we knew what would happen. He went up with Dorothy, and not very long, he'd come back down. And then he'd sit around with old-timers, and we'd sit around his feet as he talked to us. So we all loved him so much, and he would share with us in those special times. Everybody would ask a question. They'd ask questions, and he was never very specific about his answers. He told us a lot about how he grew up. We just wanted to be with him.
I guess that's the point. When you got a great man like that, you just kind of want to be around and talk about whatever you talk about. So, James, how about you? Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, in my opinion, we all do the same thing. We all go to work and work hard to take care of loved ones and family. And I truly believe that here at Shaklee, you are, as I said earlier, a free agent to live your life that way. Impact others, grow others, encourage them, and watch them be successful beyond yourself. And any of us can go anywhere and find a company that focuses on money first. But here you're free to invest in you and your family. And that is the most significant gift you can give anybody, in my opinion.
James and Ruth, thank you very much for being my guest. And for our listeners, you can subscribe to this podcast. And when you're listening, there's 3 little dots. If you click on those, you can pass this podcast along to other people, send it in Messenger, post it on the social media. We love to get the word out about the Shaklee philosophy. We love to get the word out about the value of this business, the value of the products. and really what this has meant to families like the Hallbergs and now James, and our family has been involved since 1970. So, James and Ruth, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Well, thank you for asking all those nice questions. I always like to talk about Dr. Shaklee whenever I get a chance.